voice reveal jump scare. Hey, have you ever thought about where people live in Fallout? Like, really thought about it? Because I have. A lot, actually. The series spans 200 years and almost an entire continent, so there's plenty to talk about. From tin sheds to adobe homes, from pre-war apartments to felt tents, we're going to look at the living conditions of Fallout citizenry, starting from the beginning. Let's lay out some ground rules. I'm going to be looking at permanent settlements, not temporary encampments. I realize that distinction is somewhat arbitrary, but I want to keep our scope focused on permanent homes, not one-night shelters. This means yes to Shady Sands, no to the Cons camp. I will be excluding military installations, even though the line between military and civilian is blurry, especially when the Brotherhood and Enclave are involved. This means yes to New Reno, no to the Poseidon oil rig. I'm also only going to examine currently inhabited settlements, and will be skipping over vaults, at least for the time being. This means yes to Diamond City, no to Vault 81. I'm going to proceed through the franchise in order of release date, not year of setting. Actually, the only difference that makes is whether 76 is at the beginning or the end of the timeline. In any case, I'm going to cover Fallout 1, 2, 3, New Vegas, 4, and 76. I'm skipping Tactics and Brotherhood of Steel because I am not nearly familiar enough with either of them to examine them in the analytical way I intend to. I'm also not going to talk about the TV series, that's a whole other can of worms. Let's get into it, starting where it all began. Starting off in Shady Sands, the first town the Vault Dweller is likely to visit, we see a nice little post-war settlement made from adobe and wood. It's surrounded by a wall made of the same material its internal structures are. Homes in Shady Sands are almost entirely furnished with post-war handmade items, including wood-burning ovens, hand-woven rugs, and, quote, very nice-looking beds. Notice the lack of trash or debris on the floor. The town's outhouse is crude but effective, and rather clean-looking. Their leader, Aradesh, lives in a pretty large home with his family, decorated with furniture noted to be nicer than that found in Vault 13. The presence of populated bookshelves implies that literacy is alive and well in Shady Sands. They even have a stela, or obelisk, in the center of town, indicating that they have enough spare labor to dedicate time to the arts and aesthetics. In the town's agricultural sector, we find a functioning well, a wheelbarrow, and rows of crops. Let's move on to Junktown, a post-war settlement built out of, well, yeah, junk, obviously. The settlement is surrounded by a wall of corrugated metal sheets and car parts, providing shelter from raiders. Most buildings in Junktown are made from salvaged metal and wood, and the floor seems to be paved with clay tiles, dented and weathered as they may be. Scattered around, you'll also notice some small piles of junk have accumulated against the walls of people's homes, either blown by the wind or maybe used as structural supports. Looking at the furniture, we see a variety of rotten pre-war relics, including what I think are supposed to be bus seats being used as couches. Junktown's villagers seem to sleep on filthy pre-war beds and improvised sleeping bags with cobbled-together wooden furniture for decoration. This style of architecture is dominant in the settlement, with most of its inhabitants dwelling in this kind of squalor. In the town's north, you can find Killian's General Store, one of Junktown's main economic hubs. It's floored with the same clay tiles we saw before, and hosts a selection of storage shelves and tables for the merchandise. Once again, note the lack of trash on the floor inside. The one distinctly pre-war looking building in town is the hospital, although it looks to me like it was something like a wastewater processing plant when it was built, not a medical clinic. Anyway, inside we see salvaged chairs and couches, filthy operating tables, and below ground, a storage room for what I presume to be various tinctures and herbal remedies. In the far corner of town, we have Gizmo's Casino, Junktown's main attraction. Its furnishings are modest, but there we can find a variety of slot machines and gambling tables that look pre-war and seem to be in very good condition. Behind the scenes is Gizmo himself, possessing a very large bedroom for a very large man, and several bookshelves. Looks like the big guy enjoys reading. Next up is the Hub, the biggest city in South California, as of 2161. This pre-war town has grown to massive importance in the region's water trade, and has certainly earned its name. The hub boasts working electricity and public lighting, along with clean paved roads. What luxury! Some of the town's residents live in improvised metal shacks typical of the wasteland, while others dwell in still standing old homes. Looking inside this one here, we see a fairly nice, clean house with a mixture of old and new furniture. The same can be said of many of the town's folks' homes, repurposed and cleaned out pre-war structures. In the hub's hub, we find the Crimson Caravan Company's headquarters, which doesn't have much to speak of yet, but we will be hearing from these guys again later. The hub's shops seem well stocked, and its casino/hotel is mainly decorated with pre-war salvaged stuff. Beth's gun shop, where she lives, is well guarded and clean, as is the police station across the street. The Fargo Traders to the north looks well kept, even if its seating is a bit run down. Also, side note, they call caps hub bucks in Fallout 1. Kinda interesting. In the old industrial zone, people have started living in abandoned warehouses and seem to have left the disused merchandise where they found it. As we will see many times more, the striking poverty of the masses is contrasted with the relative prosperity of the rich. Jacob, the arms dealer, seems to be living at large, as are the Hightower family in the hub's fancy district. Why don't we go visit good old Bakersfield, or as it's called nowadays, Necropolis? This wretched settlement is a scene of total ruin, with its ghoul inhabitants possessing little to no post-war material goods, indicating a lack of local production or trade. In the city's sewers live a colony of exiles who seem to be even worse off than their surface-dwelling kin. You can see the rubble and trash scattered around their living space. The church where Necropolis' leader, Set, lives is likewise in a state of disrepair, but at least the floors aren't too filthy. I think the ghouls who live closer to the church are meant to be better off. It seems like their homes are a bit nicer than those on the city's outskirts. Our next up is Aditum, a settlement in the ruins of Los Angeles. It's surrounded by a chain-link fence, and has working electricity, so there's that at least. The pre-war buildings where people live are very clean and well furnished for the most part, but there are still sporadic debris piles around outside. They even have a mushroom farm underground. Mushroom! Just north of Aditum is the Blades Hangout, a big pre-war clubhouse of some sort that has definitely seen better days. The people living here seem to sleep on sprawled-out bedrolls, and the furniture is mostly salvaged wrecks. CDEDBD ducks? Nearby is the Followers of the Apocalypse's base, an old library. It looks like they've done a really good job of restoring it, and have turned some of the reading rooms into bedrooms. Its bookshelves appear to be well stocked, and the floors are nice and clean. Great job, guys. Next up in LA is the Gunrunner's base. Not too much to see here aside from the moat of toxic waste and improvised fortifications. Inside, it appears that they live at the factory, dirty as it is. Looks like they sleep on these military bunk beds, which are noted as being very uncomfortable. So, that wraps it up for Fallout 1. Let me know what you think in the comments, because this is a very new format for me. Are there any future in-game locations you want me to give special attention to? Any interesting details I might have missed? Again, let me know. Oh, and thanks for watching.